always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to accompany an open house. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. This hour you're invited to an open house by author Elizabeth Berg, a previous recommended selection in Oprah's book club. As the Los Angeles Times said in a review, a simple story with moments of hard-earned wisdom, unquote. That and so much more. For anyone who has ever faced a divorce or separation and tried to pick up the pieces to start anew, this book is a must-read. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Kelly Rowland with Unity and Sinead O'Connor and Nothing Compares to You. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. The main character in the novel is Samantha. She is speaking in this short excerpt, and I quote, "Back in the kitchen, I take a sip from my coffee. It's gone cold. A ring of congealed cream visible at the outside edge. Look how fast things turn. I dump the coffee out, then throw the cup in the trash. I never want to see that cup again. David, I say very softly, like a prayer. David, I say again, and lean against the wall to cry. It helps. It's so funny how it helps. Stress hormones get released when you cry. That's why it works. It's amazing how smart the body is. Though maybe we could do without loving, I think it's overrated, and I think it's too hard. You should only love your children. That is necessary." Unquote. A line or so later, she writes, "But to love a man, it's overrated, and it's too hard, and I will never do it again." Well, what I will do now is make a list. There's a lot to think about, so much to do. I'll go outside. I'll sit out there where it's so much bigger, where there is no roof to fall in on your head and make you brain damaged should you survive. Unquote. Elizabeth Berg from Open House, a Ballantine book published by the Random House Publishing Group, and one of the past featured selections in Oprah's book club, and well worth a second look, a second read. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Sarah McLachlan, Fallen, and Whitney Houston, To Try It on My Own. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. The Baltimore Sun said a fine literary novel, smart, funny, and satisfying. Bringing up a child on your own, dating again, building a new life, all are familiar themes in separation and divorce. But that doesn't mean Sam is prepared for any of them. Open House is a joy to read for the sheer grace of Berg's writing and for the sharply drawn characters who could be people you and I know. Unquote. She certainly doesn't make light of a tragic situation, but there are light-hearted moments. One of those moments is when she decides to pay a visit to Tiffany's, to buy a China tea set and ends up buying an 18-karat gold bracelet studded with diamonds and a tea service for 10. In the end, she walks out with over $13,000 in merchandise, most of which, of course, she doesn't need, but it makes the point to her ex even more. Again, I quote, "You break my heart, and I break the bank," unquote. The character Samantha says, and again I quote, "I don't know why I bought that bracelet. In my jewelry box are a fair number of velvet cases holding necklaces and bracelets that David gave me for my birthday, for Christmas. But I don't like fancy jewelry. I never have. The fancy things I like are sheets, pots and pans. And things I really like aren't fancy at all. Old aprons and hankies, butter wrappers from the 1-pound blocks, peony bushes, hardback books of poetry. And I like things less than that. The sticky remains at the bottom of the apple crisp dish. The way cats sometimes run sideways. The presence of rainbows in a puddle of oil. Mayonnaise jars. Pussy willows. Wash on a line. The tick-tock of clocks. The blue of the neon sign at the local movie house. The fact that there is a local movie house. I turn off the radio and listen to the quiet, which has its own rich sound, which I knew but had forgotten. And it is good to remember. Unquote. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Phil Collins, Against All Odds, Faith Hill and Cry, and Jann Arden with The Sound Of. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. In the back of the book is a conversation with the author, Elizabeth Berg. She was asked, once Sam realizes that the divorce is really happening, she does some rather, extraordinarily embarrassing things. Do you ever, out of sympathy, want to stop a character from acting as she intends to? And this was the author's response. I never want to stop a character from doing anything. I love when they take over, and I feel like I'm just watching the show. Unquote. The book begins with her readying herself to try to explain to her son that his mother and father have split up. In the question and answer section at the end of the book, she's asked, Sam leaves a tough question in the novel unanswered. How much truth are children entitled to? Do you have an answer to that question? To which Berg responded, Oh, I wish I did. It's a hard question and there is no definitive answer because children are all different. Some are well equipped to handle difficult truths. Others need more protection. Some have a great deal of empathy and perspective. Some do not. It is not always a function of age either. A child may be more philosophical or calm or secure than an older one. Our job as parents is to try to know our children as best as we can, and then support them in the ways that they need it. And it's a really hard job. It might be impossible, but we try. And when they know that we really, really love them, it helps. Elizabeth Berg writing in the book Open House, a Ballantine book published by the Random House Publishing Group. I'm Don Jackson from CHFI.com. Deborah Cox, Beautiful You Are, and Paul Simon, Slip Sliding Away. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. In the questions and answers section at the back of the book, Elizabeth Berg writes, "Wisdom is a funny thing. I think some children are very, very wise, and some old people are not wise at all. It seems to me that more than anything, wisdom is a gift some people are given." Unquote. Some thoughts from Open House by Elizabeth Berg, a Ballantine book published in 2001 by the Random House Publishing Group. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Christina Aguilera, That's Hurt, and Taylor Swift, In the Middle of a Love Story. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Again, the name of the book is Open House by Elizabeth Berg, a Ballantine book published in 2001 by the Random House Publishing Group, and one of Oprah's picks for her book club. It really is a great read, even a second time around. And one final thought this hour. Ellen Goodman from the Washington Post Writers Group wrote, "Young people, first-timers, if you will, take on marriage as if it were a plot of land. With luck, they build something new and welcoming. With luck, they always feel at home with each other. But second-timers are natural renovators. They know the structure of marriage enough to be wary of the ways the foundation weakens. They know it enough to seek comfort again in its shelter and support. And more than that, they have learned something about balancing a respect for each other's past with a need to create something that will be theirs." Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.